Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 124 of the Xbox Hall of Gamers podcast. This week, I'm joined by KEO.
Hello.
And that's it. It's just us. We're two-manning it. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, doing good. So I guess I was a week off last week. So it's been a week. It's been a wild week. Actually, funny enough, Little Kitty Big City came out the night that I had to go hunting for a cat that fell out of a yard.
Aww.
And it was like the first time, it was the first night that this person had taken ownership of the cat and was devastated. So the next 3 days I spent handing out flyers, setting up cameras to see if they'll come back, all kinds of stuff. So I'm like, I don't know if I can handle playing Little Kitty Big City this week. I might put that off to next week because it looks exactly like that cat. So I did load that up though. Yeah, I did load that up though. It plays really well. I reckon the controls are good. So yeah.
As always, we're doing the show live on Twitch. We've got the Moonzom hanging out in the chat. So come say hi. Xbox Hall of Gamers is the place to find us as always. Otherwise, you can listen to us on your podcast platform of choice. And I also upload the VODs to YouTube after editing them a little bit. So if you need to go back and watch a few episodes or catch up some of our guest stuff that we've done in the past, that's the place to do it. Yeah, I guess we'll just get straight into it this week. We do have a community question from my good friend Isaac. Who says, hey guys, are there any games that you have dived intentionally or unintentionally that you haven't gotten back to? What are they, and are you going to go back? Looking forward to your answers. Thanks.
All right, I'll get you to start.
Yep. He also gives an example. He says, for me, I've dived 3 games with 1 achievement unlocked. Those are Darksiders 2, Bionic Commando Rearmed, and Rabbids Party of Legends. Jeez, what a fucking weird eclectic list that is. That's an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
He says, the Rabbids one, apparently he just started last week, so probably doesn't count. But the other 2 he hopes to get back to at some point, but hasn't made them a priority. Might need them for a competition or something to try and, encourage him to do it. So I'll give that some thought for next month's theme. What could we get that has Darksiders 2 and Bionic Commando Rearmed in it? That'd be an interesting.
Yeah. I used to, every single game that I bought, I took out of its box, unwrapped it, and put it in the Xbox and loaded it up at least once. That's what I used to do.
Really?
So every single game, no matter what, was a dive.
Damn, all right.
Yeah. Well, you got to try these things out. So that was the idea back in the day. So,
No, yeah, that makes sense. I totally get that. Yeah, I don't like intentional bean dives is something that would drive me nuts, right? Like I just don't, if Shane was on here, he'd be pulling his hair out. Just the kind of the decimation that it causes to your completion percentage is just unacceptable. But I am looking at my list here of stuff that I've started. A lot of it is like stuff that have low completion percentage in.
Yep.
And a lot of it is like a couple of achievements, and sort of a lot of them were sort of semi-intentional bean dives, I guess, for other competitions. One of the problems with having such a high completion percentage was that I couldn't join competitions because it'd be like, hey, you don't have enough like TA competitions, like you don't have enough achievements to be in this competition, basically, or enough non-unlocked achievements. So you'd have to add things to a collection or all that kind of stuff. So if you check out my game collection, you'll see like there isn't anything unstarted in there at the moment. But if I need to bump up the numbers, I have a collection of like 200. I think it's like 100 games or so that I haven't really started in my backlog.
Yeah,
that I could chuck in there. That I'm like, again, I'm still umming and ahhing about if I'll play any of them, but I've been trying to make a bit of an effort to kind of crack down on that backlog because it's kind of an invisible one. Like on TA, if you don't earn an achievement, you don't see the game against your stats. So you kind of sometimes forget about the fact that you have this kind of like unplayed list. I've actually made a group on my Xbox to kind of remind me to just check every now and then to say, oh, actually, yeah, I should maybe get back into this or try this or maybe earn an achievement here.
Yeah. I mean, with backlog stuff, I mean, I have like nearly 400 360 games just sitting in a cupboard over there. And they're all things, a lot of things I haven't started, and a lot of things I just have multiplayer done in. So my dive is basically go in and do the multiplayer on anything that has a multiplayer, and then So, but I mean, I never unintentionally start stuff. Um, but I mean, yeah. So I would say just little arcade games were probably the things that I probably dived when I
Yeah.
just jumped in and then played them once and never went back to. Um, things like I back in the PS1 days played the original Vigilante 8 and
Oh yeah, right, right.
and then it came out and I was excited on Xbox and then you load it up and you realize that it's the shell of the version. Like it doesn't have
Yeah.
the cutscenes, it doesn't have anything that the original game originally had. It was just basically like pretty much as it
No, I'm
is.
backwards compatible too, so I wanted to finish that,
Yes.
but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a couple of things like that, just arcade games that were only ever loaded up once, which is probably my main problem with some of those games. So, but yeah, back in the day, everything was a dive, so everything.
mm.
So Sonic Riders, I think the Connect
Is it the
game.
Connect one? Yeah, the Connect one.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a throwback.
So, yeah. But yeah, I would say that's probably it. And stuff like I think I never finished Resonance of Fate. I stuff like that. I loaded it up and did like the first little area and never went
Sure.
back to it as well. But mm.
Yeah, I'm having a look at my list at the moment. Um, I've got Battle Chasers Night War,
Oh
which
right,
I got.
yeah, that looks good. That was on Game Pass, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I own it, and I got because it was
Mm.
been on sale for like 90% off heaps of times. I picked it up and I got one achievement in it, and then something I can't remember what happened. I think I might have just got it for like I don't know because it's got like a 3.5 ratio, and I know it's like super easy, but it's also not like massively difficult either. So for some reason I just didn't go back to it. I really should. Um,
Mm.
Risen 2. I like yeah, that's one of those ones I wish I could take off my tag. It's just it's
Oh,
so
I get
shit.
it. Yeah.
I've got like three achievements and I definitely did it for a TA competition. I remember Just Cause 2 Japan. I started with
Oh.
intentions to play through it,
Mm.
but I got that one I definitely got distracted by, and actually I plan on going back to that one pretty soon. Um, and then probably the most popular one here is Cyberpunk. Um, I only have four achievements in Cyberpunk. I put about 10 hours into it, but now I've actually just restarted. I've re-downloaded it and restarted it. Put another hour into it or so
Mm.
with the new updates and the new DLC and stuff. So, I'm hoping to kind of make some progress there. I know I think Aftos was playing it a little while ago, and he said he really enjoyed it. I think he finished it. There's actually quite a few people who have finished it. Or Aftos hasn't finished it, but he made a good dent
Yeah.
in it at
Yeah.
least.
Fable Anniversary, I loaded it up the day I got it, which was the day it came out. Got
Hmm.
the tablet Windows 8 Smart Glass achievement and then didn't play it again.
Smart. I mean, that's
The
the
one
important
that's
one.
the one that's actually broken that you can't finish. Yeah,
Yep.
that Smart Glass achievement. Mm.
I've got State of Decay on here as well as one that like I did for a competition on the 360, and I just wish I hadn't done because I really
Oh
didn't
right.
enjoy it.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I've got the Banner Saga. I did like the tutorial and just was like, man, I'm really fucking bad at this already, and probably shouldn't have played it. But
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Zoo Tycoon. I got The Witcher 3 here, although I have a few achievements in that, but it has a big list.
Yes.
Um, Bionic Commander Rearmed on my one as well. It was also one that I really should get back to. It's got a pretty high TA though.
Mm-hmm.
I got a game called Dead Block, another non-backwards compatible one.
Oh yeah.
Connect Adventures, Jet Set Radio, Devil May Cry 4, um, Sundered. Yeah, it's like some of those. It's a bit of a random list of games that I've just kind of like I dipped into. Most of them I have most like I tried it. Yeah, like even stuff like Pure and
Mm.
Disintegration and stuff. Like I have like 34%. So like there I do have some stuff there that would be really really good to clean up, but most of my percentages are probably in the like over 50% completion for most of my games. A lot of them are
Um,
sitting at the kind of 90% or something along those lines where I'm
yeah.
just like, oh,
I got the collector's edition with the statue of Dark Souls 2.
oh, yep.
And the only achievement I have in it is this is Dark Souls, which is die for the first
Die
time.
first time. Yeah.
And that was,
Amazing.
I've had it since it come out. I got the collector's edition and everything. Like it's not the greatest game, of course. It's not the one that everyone loves, but.
I still like it has its problems, but yeah, that's pretty great.
But yeah, so that's probably the kind of stuff that you'd be looking through my list and seeing just a mountain of things that just have one achievement in them because I loaded them up for the first time. So
Yeah.
mm,
All right. Well, hopefully that answers your question there, Isaac. Yeah,
yes,
it's a good reminder to going back and look at this stuff and be like,
mm,
man, I should probably clean some of this shit up because
yeah.
it's
David's
just been sitting there.
asking if we're gonna get Braid Anniversary.
Oh, God, I mean, like, I don't think so.
Mm,
I really enjoyed the original Braid. Like, it was one of those, like, it's one of those
yep.
seminal games from the Xbox Live Arcade era. But that speedrun achievement, I've still never gotten it. So,
I did get it. That game, I think it might be like my third completion or something. I'm just trying to go
wow.
through and find it. It was along with I think BioShock 1 was the
Mm.
first completion I had. And then maybe the Simpsons game, and then I think I played Braid and got that completion. So
That's really impressive because like that's one of those ones that like sits there in that limbo category of like probably never going to go back and get it, but
yeah,
I should because I have been trying to go back and bash my head against some of these games again.
yeah, yeah. So I do want to go and I do want to pick it up. I don't think I'll get to it soon, but
Mm.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, I'm just looking at the original one now. I started it 11th of August 2008.
mm. So okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Finished on the 28th of February '09. Oh, I started it on the 24th of February and then finished it on the 28th. Took me
nice.
only 4 days to finish that game.
That's
So
pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not a super long game, right? And I really did
Mm,
enjoy it. I don't know if I enjoyed it enough to do the speed run again because that achievement is back in the anniversary edition as well. So
yeah, yeah. Mm.
yeah.
But
All
yeah.
right. All right, well let's get into some news. There's a little bit going around. I figured we'd start with something that's near and dear to your heart, Keo, with the Division.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, so this one here, the free to play shooter, The Division Heartlander, is cancelled. I mean, you can see this kind of stuff coming a mile away, but of course, they still releasing X Defiant. Rainbow Six is still going strong, but their greatest game, arguably, in my opinion, to ever have released of the Division series, could have brought some people into the fold with this one, but it
I mean,
looks like
I love the original. Like I was like again, I'm not a big fan of the kind of
Mhm.
live service game, but the original Division had something to it that was really compelling.
Yes, it did. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff going with this. So basically, it was rated in Taiwan in November, but it looks like they've already pulled the plug. Decided to stop development and they've redeployed their resources for bigger opportunities such as X Defiant and Rainbow Six. So it is kind of a niche, uh, I guess, theme you could say. Um, it's so compared to what Rainbow Six and X Defiant are going to be first-person shooters. X Defiant will
Yeah,
have the Division content in it, like I was saying a couple of weeks ago, where you have like a pull the payload thing, where you're like pulling a guiding a dog, one of the doggos from
right.
the
Yeah.
Division into along a track essentially, stuff like that. So there are things that will, but I mean, like if they're going to do Division 3, whatever they've done with this world needs to be part of that. And it,
I suspect that they're not going to
mm,
throw it all out, right? They did confirm they were doing a third one.
yeah, yeah,
And David asks, did they ever release additional subtraction and multiplication? Unfortunately, not. It was only division.
yeah.
Um,
There's only one man that can pull that off.
um, it's funny to think about like Division Heartland. I'm just looking like was announced back in 2021. So it's like we haven't really
Yeah,
heard anything about it
nope,
since then.
nothing. And
I think there was
it
some
was being
closed
done by
betas, I
Red
think.
Storm, I believe,
Yeah.
because the guys that were working on the Division basically were it was a shell of the studio, and they moved on to do basically
Star Wars
Star
Outlaws
Wars and
and a few other bits
Avatar.
and pieces, right? Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we were left with that. And yeah, not much else. So they opened up another studio in, I can't remember now. But they named the studio in the they've actually called the studio by the name of where the location, whatever it is.
Oh,
I'd
okay.
have to look that up. And it was the thing that I was saying on a different episode where they were rolling out after skipping like a couple of seasons worth of content. Basically, went for a year and a half with nothing, and they
And then they
started
sort
to
of
do
picking it back
like
up.
season 7 and season or 9 or whatever it was that they were up to. They started getting that rolling again. I haven't logged into the Division for a while to see where that's at, but
Mm.
I'd like to think that this won't go to waste, and that they're working on Division 3.
Yeah,
So
I mean, Outlaws is obviously that's
yeah,
supposed to be this year, I think. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm guessing they're probably sort of ramping up for whatever their next project is going to be, which would probably be Division 3 would make sense. They have confirmed they're doing it, and
Hmm.
I'm assuming
Hmm.
Massive will be the ones making it.
Yeah, I'd like to think
Uh,
so. Red Storm could still pull it off. There's a lot of good stuff that they've done. I think they did one of the raids in Division 2, I think. So they've
right.
definitely done content and are very familiar with it. But yeah, they got a lot of work to do.
I think from an industry and sort of landscape point of view is probably the right move to not have it's because a free to play thing was kind of
Yep.
a free to play shooter in this market. I don't feel like is kind of the right move. Like a free to play like PvE shooter in that kind of way. I mean, obviously X Defiant is looking for that Call of Duty audience, but I
Hmm.
think that belts are tightening a little bit, and like
Hmm.
we've seen layoffs and budget cuts and all that kind of stuff across the industry, and this was an interesting idea.
Yeah.
If this had come out like 2019 2020 like without doubt,
Hmm.
then I think maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But for a game that was supposed to be coming out end of this year, beginning of next year, like 2025, I feel like the industry has kind of moved on from some of the like this. Well, I mean, this kind of game has kind of fallen out of favor a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. There's only so much room in the market for people to actually sit down and play because it's time, right?
Yeah,
So that's the commodity, and that's the lesson that we've
and
learned from the Fallout TV show.
yeah,
It's all about
the
time. So
and I guess it's a bit of an interesting one from Ubisoft's point of view because they have pivoted a little bit away from the sort of free to play model into more. They said they're moving into the more premium game market now that they have Ubisoft Plus, and so they're gonna. And the next story will also be talking about an Ubisoft game. Um, I think
yep,
they're just gonna say, well, you know what? Like we'll make the game super fucking expensive to buy, and then we'll just make Ubisoft Plus like a somewhat good deal. You've been playing
yeah,
quite a few Ubisoft Plus stuff over the last few weeks, right?
yeah, and like for somebody who's played a lot of Ubisoft stuff, and I've like most of the games I've played already that are on Ubisoft Plus, except for the last couple of years worth. So we're talking Far Cry 6, Immortals, stuff like that, and more recent stuff. I've played and finished everything else on that whole list. So like all of the 360 Assassin's Creed games, a lot of that. So where the value of Ubisoft Plus is in their new releases, and
Mm,
it's getting people in to play new releases and staying for the DLC or coming back. So if the plan was getting people in to play the base game and then getting them back to play the DLC, or just hoping that people forget to cancel their subscription,
yeah,
then then you're pretty much set, right? So and
yeah.
that's where the retention is. It's not keeping people, it's getting people to come back at key moments.
Well,
So
and that's the thing, right? Like if you have a free to play division game,
mhm,
like there's not a lot of reason to have again, because if you have a free to play game, chances are the DLC for it or updates are all going to be free as well.
yep,
And so that kind of goes against their current strategy
yep,
with Ubisoft Plus, which is premium games, all DLC included, a
yep,
relatively high monthly cost for it.
yeah. My ultimate take for the Heartland would be to release Division 3 and then make Heartland the map the survival mode.
Sure, yeah. Like they did with
So
one, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
exactly, use the map take people to a different location so they've got new stuff to explore for survival, and then you're winning, basically. You're not wasting any resources, you're using everything. So
I'm curious about the Division 2, actually. I never really, like, kind of just was like, well,
yep. Yeah.
I never really, I don't know, because I enjoyed Division 1 quite a lot, and
Yep.
then the DLC was kind of like, okay. Like, the survival mode I had a good time with when we ran through it.
Yeah.
But the underground was kind of not interesting, and the Last Stand stuff was a
Mhm.
fucking nightmare.
It was all the grind, and at the point where you get to the end of the game, the final update was like 1.78 or something like that. Um, there was a set meta, and basically that meta never changed after that point, really.
Yeah.
So they did the final updates, and you were working towards the gear, and it was always kind of the same gear, but you could have all of the builds and all of the meta. This is still talking about the Division 1. They had different play styles, and then basically you could build your meta from those play styles based on
Right.
the ultimate gear, but there's no new gear after that point.
Of course,
It
right?
was
Because the
all,
game's
yeah,
basically
it
done.
was like the glowy green colored like final tier of gear that you'll loot. Yeah. So the Division 2, a lot more flexible. The world was great, and there was a point. There were points in the DLC for that where you went back to New York, where it's I think several years after the first game, where you were still seeing Christmas decorations set up and working in like a shopping center or a market or something like that, but it was a different time of year, right? So you're not looking at
Yeah, right.
the snowy, dark, dank um, scene of the Division 1. You see it at a different time of the year, and it's really unsettling because all of the Christmas stuff is still there. It's just a completely different time of year. Like, we don't have Christmas with snow here in Australia, so we kind of get that. But it's like
Mm.
you knew what happened, and then you know it's all set up still. And it was just a really good feeling to go back to some of these scenes and see that kind of stuff. But yeah,
Is it worth playing?
it is definitely worth playing. Um,
Mm.
the only problem is that you have to do the raids for some of the final achievements.
Yeah, you need 8 people for those, right?
Exactly. But in the end, when I ended up doing it, I somewhat ended up with a consistent group. And once you knew how to do the puzzles, basically I ended up being the person dictating. You know,
Sure.
you had people falling off and then other people coming in and stuff, and you had to like, well, do this, do this, do this. Um, so and that's a good feeling to do as well, but it's just you you can't get everybody working to do what you want them to do for that. And the problem with that with the raids was that they released the raids, they had a blow up of they amped it up. They amped it up so much the release week because they wanted the buzz of that first day, first run, first
Of
win
course.
kind of
Yeah. In the
feeling that
same
you
way that
get.
Destiny does. Yeah.
Exactly. They wanted what Destiny had, but they weren't going to follow through and keep supporting it basically after that.
Yeah.
They wanted that day one buzz, and then there was basically a drop off. So they went about it the wrong way in terms of actually dealing with that content, because uh, it was so long for them to add matchmaking and stuff like that to the raids when it desperately needed more people going in and seeing it. And no one was playing the raids because there was no way to have eight eight people, I think it was, all up, matchmake, or you had to have a group, and if you didn't have a group,
Yeah.
then that was it. And you might have one or two friends. I had three friends that were playing the game, but we never had 8 people.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
had to
Gotcha.
go to external sources outside the game to actually find people when you needed ways in the game to find people, to build
Mm.
the community of people playing your game by meeting other people playing the game. I mean, that's how everyone got into Halo. And I
Yeah,
met
that's true.
people
Yeah. No,
through
you're a good
Halo,
point. Yeah.
and exclusively through finding people in game, and then you become friends with them online, and then you go and do the campaigns together. You do this, you do that. You start doing other stuff outside the raids. So yeah. So yeah, it's probably a good call that they're shutting Heartland down, because if they were going to go down that road again, then it was already going to be a mess.
Yeah, they don't doesn't sound like they have a great history of supporting, and like a free to play game like that is going to need support.
Well,
You know.
that's the thing. It had massive, massive support. That game was
Mm.
supported by so many, and there were tons of dedicated podcasts. And I used to, when I was active in
Sure.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
used to listen to like 4 or 5 different Division podcasts, and they all
Jesus.
had different things to say. And I mean, they weren't really long episodes. You could get by with 20
Sure.
minutes, half an hour chunks, and sometimes they just talk about Tarkov or whatever. Um, but eventually when things started dying off, but like a huge community, and some of the, I guess the best cosplay as well came from it as well. People making the
Oh.
watches and all that kind of stuff, and really decking themselves out in gear and stuff like that too. So some really gritty, down to earth looking, suited up people. So yeah, it was big.
Yeah. All
It
right.
was big, and you wouldn't know because you know it's a hard thing, I guess, to follow if you're not um on the pulse for supporting your
Sure.
community the
Yeah.
way
Yeah,
that you needed
exactly.
to. So, mm.
Um.
But yeah, so that's
But one
my
thing
rant.
but the one thing Ubisoft is definitely bringing out is Assassin's Creed Shadows,
Yes, yes,
coming out in November, exclusively for current gen consoles. So they're leaving. It sounds like they're leaving last year behind finally.
yes, yeah. I don't know
Yeah.
anything about this yet. I haven't watched the trailer or anything. So,
It's like it was a cinematic trailer, so you're not
mm,
really not
mm.
seeing very much an announcement trailer. Two protagonists. Um, one of
Yes,
them is yeah, it's looking interesting. So you're gonna get like a ninja on one side, samurai on the other, kind of two different play styles. It looks like. Uh, so like, I guess they're kind of leaning into like you sneak around as the ninja, and then you kind of get into the more sort of standard. Oh shit, I've been seen scraps.
yes.
David said, yeah, they've got people mad. Yeah, it's because they have a black samurai as the main character.
But
Um,
this is the first time, as far as I'm aware, that they're basing the playable character on an actual person that was in history.
yes, yeah,
And that's the thing that
Yasuke,
people
yeah.
people don't understand. Like, up to this point, it was all
So
fictional.
yeah, you interact with real historical figures, but now you play as one, which is super interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
so interesting. So,
yeah, I mean, like it's a good I think it's a good choice for the franchise in terms of like picking a character like that.
mhm.
This definitely isn't the first time that Yasuki's been in, or Yasuke has been in um fiction. Like, I mean, again, it's a black guy who became a samurai, so like he's been depicted in a lot of anime and manga and all that kind of stuff and other like fiction, because it's like it's a really interesting story. um so I'm very curious. I mean, again, people have been asking Ubisoft to make Assassin's Creed Japan for since the first one came out, basically. So it's interesting they're finally giving it to them. I'm curious what the gameplay is going to be like. Again, we didn't really see much in the trailer, so I'm not
Yes.
going to pull anything from that. But I'm wondering if it's going to be how much of it's going to be Mirage and how much of it's going to be Valhalla, if you get what I mean, in terms of like size and scope and everything like that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, hopefully they build their cities like Mirage and then
Yeah.
have something going on, because I mean, you look at the like the buildings and all that kind of stuff in I guess the feudal period. That's that. I don't
Hmm.
know if there's another actual name of the period that it's based in.
Yeah,
But
Feudal gets the idea
yeah,
across. I get what you mean.
but
Yeah.
like there are so many old games where we enjoyed running around the rooftops in like Shinobi style games and stuff like that.
Yeah, like
Um,
Tenchu and stuff like that.
exactly. Yeah, Tenchu was the one I was thinking of. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I've still got one of the PS1 games.
Good old FromSoft before they went into the
Yeah.
Dark Souls.
Mm. Yeah, like that would be a good feeling again, and we get like a stealth character and like I guess a more action-based character. So they are covering both sides of it. So whether or not it will be really exclusively stealth with one and then action-based with another, or not,
Yeah.
then
I,
it's kind of hard to say, but mm,
D- David points out, yeah, that apparently you can play the whole game as like one or the other. And I imagine you can switch between them as well. So that's kind of cool, being able to
yes.
tackle things with different skill sets. I mean, they've done the dual protagonist thing before. I mean, if you look at like Odyssey, for example, you had the brother and sister. You could kind of pick between the two of them, and at least when you started the game. Um, and then what was the other one? Syndicate. Syndicate had like active missions between the
Actual.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, between the two characters, which I actually quite liked, and they were kind of very different styles. Um, I'm probably going to go ninja route. I mean, David points out, yeah, the Tenchu Stealth Assassin on the PS1. Yeah, love that game.
Definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm definitely keen to relive those days and just kind of be a cool fucking ninja and sneak around and stuff because like the assassinating part is the part that I like about Assassin's Creed for the most part. I mean, like I don't mind that it has some combat in there and you can kind of get around stuff, but
Yep.
sneaking around and shit and shanking dudes and throwing
Yeah.
smoke bombs and stuff like it, the ninja thing is basically built for this.
Yeah, and I imagine they'd probably be able to pull a lot from For Honor for the other style.
True,
So,
actually, it's a very good point. Yeah,
yeah. So, because they've done very much that same thing. So, hmm. But yeah, what do you think about having your own hideout available again to kind of customize and stuff like that? That wasn't in some of the more recent games, wasn't it? But back in the old trilogy, the Ezio trilogy,
hmm
you were able to do that with kind of the I guess the manner that you ended up in
yeah, for the
eventually in the
second
later
game, and
games.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and the hideouts. Yeah, yeah, they kind of say big open world as well. So I don't think this is a day one for me.
hmm
Like, I'm curious, and but I'm definitely going to wait for reviews and maybe get see a few other people applying it and see
yeah,
what they think and kind of get the feel for it. Because while I enjoyed, the kind of the last trilogy they did of like, or like I enjoyed Origins quite a bit, and I have Odyssey sitting there that I need to play, but all I've heard about Odyssey was kind of taking the piss a little bit in terms of how big it was, and then Valhalla, a lot of people were just like, I like got halfway through the game and thought it was done, and it was not.
mm, mm.
So I'm really hoping that it's like, I don't know, like it's a bit more contained, or at least not as like grindy. But I don't
Yeah,
know. So,
yeah,
I also understand that I'm not necessarily the target audience for this game anymore. Because there are people who are going to buy this, and it's going to be like the one thing they play for like 200 hours because like they fucking love that shit, and they just put a few hours into it every night or whatever.
yeah. Um, you, I don't know. I don't know if you can be super invested in the Assassin's Creed franchise to enjoy it. I mean, everyone's been through the Assassin's Creed burnout, and like the last few
Yeah,
games really tore through people. And Mirage was confused because I heard people saying, "Oh, it's like the first game, Assassin's Creed 2," and then had to be explained that it's like the first game that they don't really
yeah,
talk about. That
yeah.
like it's not, Assassin's Creed 2 was not the first game. So, um, so they really need to draw new people in, and I mean, Japan's gonna do it. That's
Mm.
yeah. So that'll be really, really nice to see if they can do some just nice stuff. As long as we don't get, I mean, like scenic points that we have to observe
Of
and
course you will. You're going to
all
get
that
synchronized
kind of
points. Like
stuff.
it's going to be an
Yeah,
Assassin's
yeah,
Creed game through and
yeah.
through.
Mm,
It's also getting a lot of comparison with Ghost of Tsushima. So I think I'll be very interested to see how those hold up because I feel like Ghost of Tsushima is by all accounts a fucking fantastic game,
yes,
both
which
from like a
is
gameplay and sort of tonally as well.
I don't know, but it might already be out, or it might be it's coming out very soon on PC. I
Just
don't know
coming to
if
PC,
it's
yeah, I think it's like this week. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So, so that'll be hot off that. Them doing this announcement right now, that was planned.
mm.
That was
Oh, for
planned.
sure, yeah, it's smart,
So,
yeah.
yeah, very good. So, good to get something new out of it. So, mm. What about the
Nice.
pricing? What are you at with that? So,
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I mean, it's Ubisoft, right? So they'll always
yep,
charge as much as they can get away with. So it's fucking
yep.
ridiculous.
Well, I know that there are exclusivities on where the gold edition might be sold and stuff like that. Like
Oh,
they're not going to be at every
yeah,
store location,
right.
and then you'll have the statues. I think they're going into based on like the pre-orders that they've released this week. I think you have to buy them. I think from EB Games or something here.
I just,
Um,
I mean, I guess if you get Ubisoft Plus, you'll get all the digital content no matter what. So that's
yeah,
fine. But
I'm
like,
fine with all of that. So,
ugh,
but
I mean, it's Ubisoft, right? So they're so blatant with this
yeah,
bullshit.
but yeah, going back to the Division for a second. One of the things that they did with the Division is they released two versions, and one was for sale at EB, and the other one was exclusive to the Ubisoft store online, I think. But they were two statues that, if you had both of them, you could put them together and they match as a set. But
Jesus Christ, that's like Pokemon Blue and Red, where you just got to buy both of them to get everything. That's it's just
yeah,
disgusting.
so you imagine what's going to happen here with these two characters.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and the
I get the
statues and
feeling
stuff.
this is going to be a smash fucking hit for them because, again, like I said, people have been waiting for the Assassin's Creed Japan since like 2007. So
Yeah, yeah, and it's like
they're
$350 or something for the one with the statue or something like that.
exactly, it's
So
fucking insane.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, but speaking of things being ported to other platforms,
Yes.
apparently there is a leak or there's a new report that apparently that Xbox is already looking at other games to go to other platforms.
Yes.
Which this is my surprised face. Uh,
Yes.
Apparently, Jez Corden at Windows Central basically said that they have a plan called Latitude.
Yep.
That apparently their internal plan to move upcoming Microsoft-owned games to PlayStation, and apparently already working on them. I get the feeling that seeing, I think we talked about a couple of weeks ago with looking at the PlayStation's bestseller list being half Microsoft published games, that them seeing that was like, actually, yeah, this looks like this could be a viable strategy. Let's just start fucking making these things.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I'm waiting for the perfect announcement so I can tweet a comment that says, so does this mean with the Gears of War games coming to PlayStation that they will no longer be legacy titles and actually be supported by the developers?
Yeah, good luck.
I know, right? So who's
Coalition aren't
doing
going to
that
be the ones
job?
supporting it, right?
So
Yeah.
yeah, goddamn Xbox and their legacy games. So yeah, if it's not current, it's a legacy game. Don't get me on that again. But um, so it's obviously going to be the stuff going forward. Um, not, I don't know if we're going to be able to get much of the old stuff outside of stuff that already have PC versions like Halo, things like that, making their
Can
way
you imagine? Yeah,
over.
imagine playing Halo on a PlayStation is kind of a weird thought, right?
Yeah, it is. I actually think if anything should go to PlayStation, it should be Halo.
Okay.
I mean, because there's this thing where you can kind of be I think it's kind of, it was something happening with one of the Japanese games at the moment, and people were wondering whether or not it was actually going to come to PlayStation. It was must have been
Mm.
like a Persona or something because it was on an Xbox announcement. I think it might have been a Persona or something, and like getting them worried that they won't be playing a game that they could be playing or that they should be playing because they have the right to play it because it was everything else is exclusive to PlayStation up to that point.
Mm.
But Halo is the thing that would completely break open that window, right?
I mean,
So,
I think if it was 2012, you might be right, but
hmm.
Halo was in a very different spot than it was. I mean, when was the last time you heard anyone talking about Halo Infinite?
Well, they did come back with that last season or so. It's supposed to
Yeah,
be pretty good.
but that's the
So,
last season, right? They're
hmm.
done. That's what they said. They're not doing any more seasons.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, it has been buzzing, but it's not. But I mean, people are just going to be mad. It's something to make people mad, though, right? So
Sure, but I think the thing is that like in terms of things that they want to bring over to the other consoles, they're really going to need a good use case for like for first of all like just from like a cost point of view of like developing for
mm,
another platform,
yeah,
getting ratings, releasing, supporting all that kind of stuff. They want to make sure that those kinds of games that do get ported have like a there's a profit loss there that you kind of have to balance. So
mm,
like your background at the moment is Hellblade 2. Like that's
yes,
100% going to go to PlayStation,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
I would almost certainly because that game they have not marketed it at all. I don't think it's going to make a huge splash. I think it'll do well critically, but I don't think commercially it's going to do well at all. And I feel like it's going to be one of those things that they're going to feel like they have to get on other platforms.
Yeah, like David's pointing out some stuff with Unreal Engine 5, and like that engine is super flexible that they could very easily adjust a few things and, you know, swap platforms with games. So, like, I don't think it's a big deal with some of the engines at the
I don't
moment.
know. I
So,
mean, I think, yeah, but how many things are running on Unreal Engine 5 at the moment, like that are
oh,
coming out
yeah,
currently? It's still
basically
a small
nothing.
number. Yeah,
So that's what I'm saying. Like that you have to build forward basically anything. There's
sure.
pretty much going to be a neutral build of everything that they can put on whatever platform. Neutral build
Yeah,
will probably be based on the PC.
I was like, you develop everything on a
Yeah,
PC anyway, so
because yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And then basically you're just changing particular elements to cross things over. So which is what I was originally saying with Unreal Engine 5. There is so much stuff that can happen with that engine, that like you could basically do anything
Mm.
you want with it. And I think this is going to be a good direction if more developers use it. And like the old Halo games, like they would have to be remastered again. Like even with Gears, like I was saying, Gears would have to be redone again
Oh, for
before
sure,
you could
Gears
do
for
anything
sure.
with it.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
so they'd
Yeah,
have to be completely new builds before they release to any other platform. So,
and that's why I don't think it's going to be Halo. I think that 343 are not in a good enough spot right now, and we also talked last week about sort of more
oh
cuts
yeah,
coming apparently.
yeah,
I think that 343 is probably maybe looking around being like, I don't know. It doesn't sound like things are going super great over there. They've already lost a lot of people recently.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
um,
Um, yeah, there were a couple of games that I think from Bethesda that were rumored to already have builds for PlayStation.
sure.
I think because of the thing where Starfield was maybe going to be PS exclusive before Xbox, so there's pretty much something already floating around. They could very easily get Starfield over, I think. Um, but will they have all the same Elder Scrolls bugs that they had back in the day for PS3,
Sure.
right? So it's not the like,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about easily, right? Because their engine is kind
mm,
of a fucking mess. But
mm,
I
well,
definitely feel like, yeah, I think you're right though. Starfield is probably
yeah,
seems like the obvious choice, and I think
yeah.
Indiana Jones probably is going to be people have
Yeah,
talked about
yeah,
that a lot.
yeah. Well, Blade uh didn't have a console platform in the trailers,
True. Yeah, they're still
so
pretty early on for that, so I'll be curious to see what they. Yeah,
yeah,
like you're right. Like Blade would probably be a good shout for that too.
yeah.
I'm curious, these four games were a test bed. They've done well. They seem to have done well financially, so they're looking to do more.
Yeah.
When they say they want to do more, how many more are we talking here? Are we talking like maybe they do a couple of times, maybe like one or two titles a year, or is this like no, everything comes to PlayStation and Switch as well, or
I
whatever?
think so, and I would be at this point perfectly fine if they did, because the things that are exclusive to Xbox do need more people playing them, and there needs to be more buzz, and where the percentage of people playing being on other platforms, that could do it. And with Blade specifically, if they release that day one multi-platform and then go, well, Microsoft put their money behind this, Disney's saying you could do it with, you did it with Blade, Microsoft did it with Blade, then why couldn't you do that? Why can't you do Spider-Man for Xbox? Like, and then push it in the opposite direction and go, Disney might say, I want further games like Wolverine, blah, 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 multi-platform, and like
I could,
start pulling the cards from a third party perspective in terms of delegating what kind of happens. to
I,
their
I
IPs.
wonder. It's like because PlayStation is in such a dominant position, I
Mm.
imagine they'd be super resistant to putting anything on Xbox they don't have to, right?
Yeah,
Like, I don't
yeah.
think we're going to see God of War on Xbox anytime soon.
Well,
I don't
that's
think we're going to
yeah.
see The Last of Us or
Well, that's what we've been
um,
had to justify like so much though. Like it's because there's of the audience on Xbox that there isn't. Like they don't have to. We don't get the Japanese games that we get on any other platform
yeah.
because
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's worth it to them. Like they just don't sell
exactly.
enough on the platform for them
Yeah.
to spend the dollars porting those games. Whereas on
Mm.
the Microsoft equation, they obviously think they will.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's that stuff with Square Enix as well. I don't know if you covered it. Was it last
I
week
didn't put it in the news, but
or
yeah, they did
that
kind
was
of
this
mention
week?
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was this week.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so there's that as well. Like them going multi-platform.
Yeah, so it
Um,
sounds like Square Enix here have got a pretty big loss, and they said some of that's got to do with their exclusivity and just not getting enough reach for their games coming to other consoles.
which
So
goes to show that putting your game exclusively on PlayStation with the numbers that you get from PlayStation, their games are so niche that they need to like the I need a good example. I guess the Dragon Quest games were on the DS for so long and then they started making their way to PlayStation, right?
sure,
So those games that they've rebuilt and kind of re-released uh, are still a niche category. So
yeah,
even
JRPGs are a niche category
yeah,
these
yeah,
days. Yeah,
even Final
I mean,
Fantasy is
Final Fantasy
niche.
obviously is still
So
a huge franchise, but it's
yeah,
still
yeah, exactly. So and they have so many games like that. Like Foam Stars didn't do well at all, and if that released
yeah, that doesn't
multi-platform,
surprise
then
me. Yeah,
you know,
yeah, I think maybe the point is that like having third party um exclusives is doesn't seem like the way to go. I think
yeah,
the first party exclusive is really the only thing that's going to really be happening going forward because games are too expensive to make, they take too long, and when you're internal at least, if Sony's making, Sony Studio is making a game for the
mm,
PlayStation, they
yeah,
can lean on all the other Sony studios to help with that. They can work with internal resourcing. They have the best
yeah,
engineers and they understand the platform the best, as opposed to when you have a Final Fantasy who, Square Enix obviously has a close relationship with Sony,
yeah.
but clearly that's not it's just not feasible enough for them to just keep doing it the way they have been, especially with the losses they've seen.
Yeah, yeah, which is kind of what I was getting at with the Disney thing, where
Mm,
Square are now dictating that they will not be exclusive to one platform. So when do we get other developers going, oh, well, maybe we can eventually get Trials of Cold Steel on
yeah,
Xbox? And how
potentially, yeah,
fantastic would that be? So, and
yeah,
they're a small studio as well, right? So they can barely I mean, they're going years in advance of the stuff that we've seen even in the Western countries that we haven't
mm,
seen yet in terms of games that they've kind of culminated this big political tale across all of their series because they've got a lot. I can't name them because I only know the Cold Steel stuff, but like everything's so intertwined that if you move them over to Xbox, that nobody would understand exactly what's going on without seeing all of the old games first. And
sure, yeah,
there's
and that's always a risk, right? I mean, we see
yeah,
that with
yeah,
I mean, Final Fantasies aren't necessarily interconnected, right? But they share similar themes,
yeah. There's a
and
DNA. Yeah,
yeah, and
mm,
similar with Dragon Quest, right? Like we
yeah,
got, was it Dragon Quest 11? I think is the first one we've
yeah,
had on
yeah,
Xbox in a very long time.
yeah.
So
Which is the problem
yeah,
with the Trials games is that they are so intertwined with each other
mm,
that
yeah,
like it doesn't have the reach that other um franchises like Final Fantasy have. That it could have used a bigger audience just overall. Just the zeitgeist needs to be people knowing about this thing to get anywhere with it.
and putting them
So
on Game Pass, I guess, is the way to do it. I mean, I'm very curious to see how Tales of Arise is doing, because I mean I've got that installed. I've been playing through it a little bit,
right,
um,
yeah,
as like a JRPG on the Xbox. It's an interest. I'm glad that it got added because I was worried that we just wouldn't even get released.
yeah,
So it's cool that it's there.
yeah, yeah. I need to check that out. Actually, I should. Mm.
And then our last story will probably be a pretty quick one, but it looks like Tomb Raider. We saw Amazon acquired the rights to Tomb Raider a little while ago, and we weren't quite sure what they were doing with it. It looks like they're going to be doing a live action Amazon show similar to Fallout. especially with the success of that. I'm sure they greenlit. They're like, fucking video game shit. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's make this shitload of money. Um, Fallout is their most successful thing they've ever had on their streaming platform. So,
Yeah,
uh, yeah.
this leaked
Um,
quite a while ago. Actually, there was rumblings about it being a TV show for Amazon, like
yeah.
a long time ago. So a lot longer before we knew Fallout was coming. It was a it was so much longer before, and it was not long after they acquired the rights. Actually, it was probably before they acquired the rights. Like Embracer kind of took over. I think it was before that even.
Really? I'm trying to
So,
remember because I remember them selling the rights to it because it was the whole like Crystal Dynamics
mm, yeah, it
thing
was
going
kind
on
of like
there. Yeah.
around that time. Uh, yeah, that kind of popped up. So it
Because
has
I
been
do remember
rumored. So,
they were talking about the next game that Amazon
uh,
was going to be the publisher for it, and that sort of stuff got announced
yeah,
a while ago.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So I guess yeah, it appears that last year's leak was correct. I'm looking at Tom West, who published on TA. So yeah,
oh yeah,
it was leaked that they were doing that. Yeah, so I was right about that. Yeah. So yeah, so we obviously don't know any details on it. It's hard to
yeah.
say what they're going to do with it, whether or not they go with a fully new story or if they try to cover some ground that
I,
they need to.
I feel like at this stage you just do a brand new story.
Yeah,
I think they've shown with Fallout that they have they have the talent and the writers to kind of make their own sort of story within a universe.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and it's not like there's a huge amount of Tomb Raider lore they need to lean on too much that people give a shit about. I mean, obviously there is Tomb Raider like stories and they've done past adventures in a lot of games, but
mm.
people aren't nearly as reverent for it as something that is immersive as like Fallout that has like a storied history and continuity.
Yeah. That's. I think they need to be really flexible with what they're doing. They
Mm.
can't really revolve around Lara 100%. Um, it needs to have because uh they kind of had it in I think a couple of movies, but some of the kind of the it was Tomb Raider like Anniversary, Legend. Oh, so Legend and
Underworld.
Underworld, where they brought together like a group of people that were kind of doing some stuff with Lara. I
Mm.
think that was really important. They had some really good characters in that, and especially in Rise of the Tomb Raider, they had and I guess to an extent,
Like Jonah and yeah, actually like
yeah,
yeah,
mm,
that it's funny because you're right, like the original Tomb Raider or the Tomb Raider reboot that they did a few years ago
yeah,
um, makes for like a pretty good origin story kind of thing. But they've
yeah,
already done that with the movie, and so it would
yeah,
feel kind of maybe weird for them to go back to the well yet again to
yeah.
redo the same story with Himiko and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think they need to show off Lara's wealth and
Mm.
the reach that she has to do stuff within the world to let her explore unique locations. Because
Yeah,
that's what we're kind of missing. We're getting the survival Lara and not
yeah, sure, right. As
the
opposed to
actual
the
Lara Croft. So
well, I guess it's a question of like David in the chat says, do you think we get young Lara or pointy boobs Lara? I think what he's trying to say is that like where do you set this? Is this like an origin story thing that they just start from scratch? Is this like a
mm,
more like a day in the life kind of thing? Is this like a I don't know, like I think if they want to make a franchise out of it, it makes sense for it to be kind of maybe early on in her career. Maybe not the very first like
yep,
yeah, maybe not redoing the movie video game kind of thing where it's like they just do the origin story of the shipwreck in Japan thing.
yep,
But maybe it's a Batman Year One kind of thing where it's like they just kind of it's like early days, but not the very first adventure. It's like the third or fourth or something, and then
yeah, yeah,
and so
that
you can
makes
have like
sense.
you can
But
do like a flashback stuff or referencing back to stuff so people can go do the the Leonardo DiCaprio meme of pointing out like, oh hey, I know what they're talking about there, or I know this or whatever. Um, I don't know. I'm not. I don't really care too much about the Lara Croft Tomb Raider lore, but I'm just interested to see like what form that kind of show would even take.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, I'm super into Tomb Raider. It's one of my favorite franchises, and I haven't rebought the new stuff. And I did miss Shadow of the Tomb Raider for various reasons.
mm,
Um, so I need to play that as well. But Lara Croft has always been resourceful, and she's always used her elements of her wealth to pull strings in the background to get what she needs to do to particular things. And you really did see that in the Angelina Jolie movies, where
Yeah.
she was part of like an old crew that was serving in some war or whatever it was, and she pulled in and just airlifted a favor in with the jeep into the jungle and shit like that. So
Oh yeah, I
like
remember we did it for Lights, Camera, and Action, right? And we're actually
yeah,
surprisingly okay movie.
yeah, yeah. So it's stuff like that where Tomb Raider 1, I guess you ended up with some Egyptian stuff. Tomb Raider 2 had kind of like the Chinese and the mafia kind of like the mob boss kind of elements
Right.
in that, in terms of like who was controlling and who was trying to get in control of like the resources with that. 3, so this is where it gets interesting. 3 was the kind of the Tales of Lara Croft, where you each went in different areas of the globe, like Area 51, to pick up
See, I wonder if that's the
different
kind of thing they're
resources,
going
right?
to do, like more like an anthology kind of series potentially.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Um, and Tomb Raider 4 was kind of they went back to the standalone full adventure, but then Tomb Raider 5, because of what happened in Tomb Raider 4, was it was directly linked. Not going to spoil it, just play the games or something. Um, they had to do a combination of short stories on Lara Croft, and they were some of the best stories. And it went into the wild, wacky kind of um, Uncharted territory, like the first Uncharted game. If you see that in
Hmm.
the end of that game, it started to get some really supernatural elements to it. And one of the things that the Tomb Raider games have always had was fantastical and supernatural elements of some kind. And
Yeah,
I think they
absolutely. I mean, fucking
always
do with fucking dinosaurs and shit. So like, yeah,
exactly
they
there
just
was
yeah.
basically a dinosaur and at least three of the games or something. It was always like there was always something like that, like a
Hmm.
danger element. Um, but yeah, like the Area 51 in Tomb Raider 3, you had a sub, I think it was a Russian sub or something like that, or a German U-boat or something. She was in a submarine in one of the Tomb Raider Chronicles levels,
Oh,
and
okay.
then that ended up with supernatural elements, kind of like the Abyss movie, that you'd have
Oh, okay.
no
James Cameron.
idea
Yeah, right,
about.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So that there are things that have like all of these elements that tie together, but you don't know how she gets in these situations or how she's going to get out of them. But so
Mm.
I mean, like with a character that's built on blocks and walking up to an edge and climbing and jumping and just really shaky like old mechanics, there's so much storytelling in this world, and I've got a bit of a passion for Tomb Raider. You can kind of tell. So
Yeah,
I,
for
I
sure.
guess everything in this episode has been, like stuff that I've probably been passionate about. So, but yeah. So there is so much stuff, and I really think they need to pull on the resources of Lara Croft to actually pull some of this stuff off, and like just stop showing the vulnerability, survival, like how did she get here stuff. They can
Sure.
leave that
Yeah.
to a different time. We saw that in the games, and they need to tie the old Lara Croft to the new Lara Croft, and they could really do that. They could do some of that tying together with this
Yeah,
series.
I'm really curious, like in terms of like continuity and stuff, like how much of it is going to be in line, how much of it's just going to be fuzzy, and how much of it's going to be like just complete reboot. I'm very curious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that I think that'll be, we've been doing lights, camera, and action for the Fallout series, so I get the feeling that one will probably come up as well once it comes out, and we'll probably do episodes on that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the news I've got this week. I'll just quickly go through our Game Pass updates. So there was a large number of announcements of stuff coming out in the next few weeks. I think they had 10 different announcements.
Mhm.
Um, so stuff that's coming out soon or has just come out. We have Chance of Sanaa, which came out on the 15th. Highly, highly recommend this. I was trying to get people to buy this, but now Game Pass,
Ah,
every single person listening to this or watching this right now needs to go away and play that game.
okay.
I fucking loved it. Play it without a guide if you can. I like really, really recommend trying to puzzle it out yourself because it's so rewarding. I've never played anything quite like it. Um, it it would have made my game of the year list last year if I played it before January. Unfortunately, I missed it. But I'm trying to make up for it now because it was a fantastic fucking game, and I would have
Right.
argued it above a lot of other stuff that we had in our top
Hmm.
10. Um, May 16th, we had EA Sports NHL 24. as well as Immortals of Avium, which, you know, a lot of people I think have been waiting for it to come to Game Pass. Unfortunately for the developers, I picked this up for like a couple of bucks, so I've had it sitting here, meaning to play it. So now
Supposed to be
as
really
good as I'm seeing.
good.
Yeah, I've
Everyone
heard it's
should at least
I've,
try it, I think.
I've
So
heard it's pretty good. Yeah, I hear it's very collectible heavy though, so I'm kind of hoping someone on TA puts a walkthrough together or something because it just seems like a bit of a slog to
mm.
kind of be checking a video every 5 seconds.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Big one, of course, is Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. So May 21st. Very, very excited for that. Hoping that it has a really big release and people
Yeah.
really enjoy it.
I've got it
Curious about the reviews.
pre-downloaded already, so
Sweet.
mm.
And then we have on the 23rd, we have Galacticare and Haunty, which I remember Haunty got announced a little while ago. I'm not really
Yeah.
sure.
I think I talked that one up. I really like the look of it.
Yeah, I remember
So
you. I think you might have mentioned it. Yeah,
yeah.
it looks quite good actually.
Mm.
So launching straight into Game Pass.
Yep.
And then Galactic Air, I think, just kind of got surprise announced. It's a sort of like hospital management for like aliens and stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think it's like, yeah, like 2 Point Hospital, but for weird
Yeah.
alien shit, like sci-fi stuff, which is kind of fun. We've got Moving Out 2 coming out on the 28th. Very excited for that. Love the first one. Humanity, which was previously a PlayStation exclusive, which looks very, very strange.
Yep.
Lords of the Fallen, a pretty interesting release, I think, from last year that I kind of missed out on that I'm curious on. And then in June, we've got Firework and Rolling Hills as well. So like they had a lot of big announcements this month. Very curious to see. Wonder if saving a few things for the June showcase as well to kind of have, and it's out now kind of stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But of course, we also have some stuff that's leaving. Chicory, Far World Pioneers, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R, Pac-Man Museum, Railway Empire 2, and Little Witch in the Woods.
Yes. And I need to play Chicory. That's my game to play.
Yes, definitely play Chicory. I enjoy Chicory for the most part. I think it's a very, very
Yeah. I'm about a third of the way through, I think.
it's a nice game. You know, it's relaxing and chill and like kind of, you know, it's got maybe a few too many collectibles, but other than that, I had quite a good time with it. It was on our top 10 list, I believe, last year.
Yes. Yeah.
Fireworld Pioneers apparently is quite short, but also not very good. It's kind of a Terraria style, side-scrolling, blocky kind of game. JoJo's I will talk about because I've been playing it. Pac-Man Museum apparently is like very grindy or has like some difficult stuff, and it's got like a 10 ratio or something ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay.
So probably not going to do that. Railway Empire 2 is also a big game, and then Little Witch in the Wood unfortunately is still in game preview, so never got achievements. Unfortunately, it'll probably get a release afterwards. Maybe it'll come back. Who knows? Stuff has been coming back into Game Pass and cycling back over the last few months. All right. Well, let's get into what we've been playing. Here, how about you pick a game first? What do you got going on?
All right. Well, I will start with the first thing I finished. After playing, after I guess I talked about it last time. Was I did finish Rewind. I know Rewinder. Yeah, you finished that last week.
I did. Yeah, I finished it last week as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will just, I guess, give my thoughts on where I was at with that. I downloaded it on PC and played it there. I prefer the keyboard and mouse controls with it. I quickly realized that you can actually carry the PC controls over. They work on Xbox. So not only.
Oh right, you use like a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah. So I had my mouse and keyboard plugged in to do a little bit of Final Fantasy 14, and I'm like, well, I've got Rewinder downloaded. I'll just load that up and just check. So all of the features carry across. So mouse and keyboard on Xbox. If you can play it that way, play it that way. I prefer it with that over the controller. I know you went back and did it with the controller. But it was just really nice to play. So I did go back to PC and finish it that way. But because it just kind of like I could run it slightly easier that way, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely the control wise, it had a few issues with the controller. Not like issues, but just the setup was a little strange.
Yeah. The story was, I guess, the base game was really straightforward and really good and nice. Like I really liked what they did with it, and I would like based on what I've seen with the DLC, because I finished that as well, where they added new mechanics and stuff like that, and it was basically a different mini game within a game. And it was really good to go and play the DLC and just have a different experience and kind of get a bit of history on the
Mm.
characters behind it. And I would be really happy if they took the Rewinder and then made that a hub and then just did a bunch of short stories about the Rewinder that you could
Well,
just pop in and just kind of,
I mean, if you get the true ending right, you definitely see that they're setting up for
Yes,
sequels and that kind of stuff, or at least
definitely.
more
Yeah.
content. So I'm wondering if they're going to do a Rewinder 2 or if they're just going to do more DLC. But I'm with you. I'm very excited. I really, really enjoyed this game a lot.
I highly recommend going and doing it. It's really straightforward. The DLC is super cheap. And like and you'll get a different experience between,
Hmm.
the PC, I mean, I guess the DLC and the base game. So, but yeah,
And it has a good chapter select, and you can go back and grab collectibles and
it
miss achievements quite
does.
easily, which is
Yeah.
nice.
Yes, it does. Yeah, I don't think I really missed anything except I think I had to go back for one. Oh, it was just really the flowers I had to go back
There's one
for.
flower, yeah, the flowers you have to make sure, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
one you
actually
have to go
had to
back
go
and
back
get.
for. Yeah, exactly. And then I think I missed like one or two others. Um, but yeah, so that's the rewinder for me. Anything else you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, sort of in a similar, point and click adventure vein, I played the Dark Side Detective as part of our
Yep.
theme month, where you play our get to work
Yes.
theme, where basically you're either doing a job or doing some chores. And so part of that is I figured, hey, I'm going to be a detective solving crimes, and so having a fun little point and click adventure. Char recommended this to me highly. They really, really enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. It's pretty straightforward. It is your standard point and click Sierra style, Monkey Island style kind of thing. But actually, Monkey Island is probably the closest comparison I would put to it. It has very much that kind of very irreverent sense of humor with ghosts and hilarious, wild, crazier than life characters and weird cases that you're trying to solve and ridiculous solutions to puzzles and a lot of references to other stupid stuff. I had a really good time with it. It's also quite well written and very funny.
Yeah,
I've
cool.
got the
That's good.
sequel sitting here as well, but I haven't gotten around to playing it yet.
Mm, mm, mm.
Um,
Well, along the line of the theme of the month, I've been doing Power Watch Simulator, still. So I haven't been doing anything that would earn me achievements.
sure.
I went, in keeping with what we've been talking about in the show, gone back and done the Tomb Raider DLC that they added. So, and the Final Fantasy VII DLC. So I've been doing both of those. So it looks like they're 4 levels all up. I'm not completely finished with both of them because it's a slog, right? That first one, I did the first level of the Tomb Raider one and spent, I think, 3 nights casually in bed, just kind of cleaning the front of Lara Croft's mansion. Um,
Jesus Christ.
and then at the end of that, I was wondering how I was supposed to get on the top, very top of like one thing to clean it.
Hmm.
At that point, I realized that the shit lying around, you could actually pick up like like a frame, which was
Hmm.
basically a prop that you could use to climb. And then I thought it just
Oh,
stayed in one
okay,
spot,
right.
but it's got like a little foot stair stool. It's got things like ladders. It's got
Right, right,
the
right.
like the frame where you can basically just climb like this set of stairs and you can reach a high area. And you could just pick that up and just wander around with it. You just press down on the D-pad and move around and put it wherever you want. And then the game became so much easier to play.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I also I kept forgetting about my attachments. So you get like a short snub version of your gun, and then you've got like a really, really long, like sh shortest, small, medium, and then like a really long, um, I guess nozzle. Um,
Sure.
and it'll basically push further, water further, you know.
Okay. All right.
So you can kind of, yeah, but that's fine. The first level was Lara Croft's mansion. The second one was her training, um, set up out the back of her mansion, I think. And I went on to do the Final Fantasy VII stuff, which was really cool. The first one was, it was kind of stupid, where you just kind of clean like one of the vehicles, and in two vehicles that are in the front of the Shinra facility.
Yep. Yep.
I'm
So
trying to remember. I
the the
think
the,
it's
the van and
the van and
the motorbike.
the motorbike. Yeah, exactly right.
Yep.
And then you did one of the Scorpion,
Oh,
um,
right. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but basically the scorpion boss
The
that
boss from
you that
the
you
very first
fought
boss,
in
yeah.
that. So that was something, and then you could actually raise and lower the arms on that too. So
Oh,
so it looks like you can use you can do other things. Basically, you couldn't
hmm,
do anything else with it. And it'd
sure.
move its head around and stuff. But then you get, a call from Tifa, and you go down to, the Sector 7 and clean the bar, and the bar's filthy. So at the moment, I'm just washing the walls inside the bar. But yeah, so no achievements from any of those. They put achievements in all the paid DLC like SpongeBob and Back to the Future and stuff like that. Warhammer.
Right.
So they clued in after that people actually pay for their DLCs and stuff. But yeah, it would have been nice to have some achievements with those, but that's fine. So and you get the characters talking to you. Not it's just text on the screen like every 25,
Yeah, right.
50% or whatever. So, mm, but yeah,
Um, Sort of in that vein, I've been playing. Played and finished House Flipper. I sort of
yes,
talked a little bit
yep.
about it last week, but very much in that similar vein of cleaning stuff up. Cleaning windows, cleaning up dirt, getting rid of trash, fixing appliances, putting in couches and stuff. And then also with the expansions, doing the gardening, cleaning up luxury homes, getting a pet, and taking it around places and feeding it, and then like turns into like a little pet simulator thing. And then you have like a whole farm simulator stuff as well. There's a lot in this game.
Yeah.
Finally done with it. It overstayed its welcome just a little bit too long. I think it's kind of like the variety. There's not as much variety in there as I would have liked. It was fine. But I was kind of by the time I got to the end of it, I was like, I could have maybe done with 5 hours less of this. Having said that, though, uh, it's a really relaxing Zen kind of game, and I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. There is something really, really cathartic about cleaning up a house and seeing a bar go up and just having like a percentage of like how much you've cleaned of it and just being like, oh, this room's clean. Move on to close the door, move on to the next part of the house to clean up and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I kind of got a little bit more interested. That sounds something more like a little bit better than Power Wash Simulator, where it's the same nozzle washing the
Yeah.
walls, for X amount of time. It does sound like a little bit more interesting, I think.
Yeah, and you also
So,
get like perk
mm,
points and stuff as you do stuff. So like as you like, you get a thing where it's like, okay, after you clean a certain amount of things, you get a perk point to put in your cleaning ability, and so you can
yeah, nice.
show you where more dirt is, or you can clean from further away, or you can clean faster, or that kind of
Oh,
stuff. And
that's the thing in Power Wash. There's a button somewhere where you can press it and it highlights whatever dirt is left. And ever
yeah,
since that first level, I can't work out what that button is again, and I don't know I don't
right,
know where
yeah,
it is. So, but yeah, but that's good, yeah.
yeah. So I would definitely recommend it. The one big thing is that the DLC is ridiculously expensive. And it's the first time it went on sale in a very long time, recently, so I picked it up, but fuck me, they charge an arm and a leg for that. So I am curious about the second game. The one of the key drawbacks of this game is it does not look very good anymore. It is an older game and it very much shows.
Okay.
But it's you're not there for the the cutting edge graphics. You're there to kind of fuck around and just clean stuff up and make a nice little house.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm expecting an Unreal Engine 5 House Flipper too.
Yeah, right. Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So, mm.
What else have you got?
So pretty much the only thing. So I'm going to talk broadly about the Far Cry 6 DLC. So that's my Ubisoft Plus main game that I've been touching. I had to start the base game just to do Lost Between Worlds. So that final DLC that they released,
Hmm.
you had to get up to the point where you unlock co-op. I thought that it might be like an end game situation, and I'm like, I don't want to run through the entire campaign just to get access to the DLC.
Yeah.
But I wanted to do this DLC before I shut off my Ubisoft Plus. So I started with the Vast Insanity. I then did Pagan Control, Let's Go Control, and then Joseph Collapse. I did them in order 3, 4, 5, right?
Yeah.
That is not the order that I recommend you actually do it.
Oh, okay.
You get a nice little buzz at the end of doing the Far Cry 3 stuff because because the achievements for this you have to go through and play on uh the Insane 5 or whatever the like the
Sure.
hardest difficulty is. But what you do with that is that if you want to just get the achievements really quickly, you just turn it to story mode. So they added a cutscene exclusively for finishing it on the hardest difficulty in that head space 5 level, that whatever that is, the 5th star. So they did not do that for this Pagan or Joseph. They had a black screen and it was basically a conversation with a couple of characters that you're familiar with. So I'm not spoiling any of that. I'm just saying where I was going to go with it originally was, say, just play with the one that you feel that the most familiar, like connected to. So everyone will feel differently about Far Cry 3, 4, and 5, which ones were kind of their favorite in terms of what they actually wanted to play or what they liked. I would have said just play whichever one you kind of like the better, because the first experience, because it's a roguelike experience, if you die, you have to start again. You lose everything except your permanent perks that you upgrade and stuff like that. And you can do that. You can upgrade your weapons. You keep all of that. You obviously have to buy them again, your weapons, but you keep your perks unlocked. And you're basically starting from scratch. If you finish the story, you keep everything and you take everything you have back in. So what I ended up doing was I played through each one on action mode, which is the standard difficulty. So I gave myself a good slog to play through the game properly initially, and enjoyed the story that way. So I died a bunch of times, and it took a little bit longer to do certain things and stuff like that. And then when I respawned, and after finishing the story the first time, took it all the way to that mind level 5. I had everything I had from my previous playthrough from the new spawn, but then I changed to story mode. And story mode, basically, you become a bullet sponge. You're fine.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
You know, you can get through the situations. If you tried to play on action difficulty in the if you tried to play in action difficulty on that mind level 5, you would be screwed very, very quickly.
Gotcha.
Which I was.
Right.
The first one that I played at Vars, going to mind level 5, I tried it and then lost everything straight away, and then had to basically unlock some weapons again, get some cash, and go buy weapons and whatever. But then you just take it back to story, cruise through, go right to the end, just do your main objectives, which is your 3 points on each map, and then go do the end of the level, and then get the final like finishing out mind level 5 achievement from that. So
Got it.
each of these operate all exactly the same. So you get stories that are unique to Vars, Joseph, and Pagan. So that's really, really good, but they are all the same experience, which is why I was trying to say just do which one you feel that you gel with more, because
Doesn't really matter. Yeah,
whatever
gotcha,
characters that you liked the most, you will have the best experience playing that first.
But you got to do all of them anyway.
But leave Far Cry 3 for last, because you get a super special thing at the end of you get an actual cutscene at the end of Mind Level 5. Once you do
Far Cry
that,
3 is
and
the best one though.
And it is the best one. They put a lot more detail into it. They got into it, and then the other worlds are really, really good. But like Zach's saying in the chat, he should do Pagan, Joseph, and Vars. I would probably say take your pick between Joseph and Pagan, whichever one out of those two, and then do Vars last. So I really like the Far Cry 5 stuff. I didn't really, because I never played Far Cry 4. I only did the multiplayer stuff. I did my classic thing where I just did the multiplayer and left everything else alone. So I need to go back and do that game. But Pagan was really super pretty. Had some nice colors and golds, and when you killed the enemies, they kind of had like it's like the pinks and the blues and stuff like that they had as the art in the art design for 4. The enemies just basically disappear in a puff of color, and it's really, really, really nice. So each of these have their own unique flavor. They all feel really good, but they feel the same to play. So, but
I'm very curious to give us a go at some point.
Yeah,
because I didn't play Far Cry 6 at all. I kind of gave it a miss. I heard the game wasn't.
Yeah.
People were very excited because Giancarlo Esposito was in it, and everyone was like, "Oh, yeah, it looks interesting." But
yeah, I think I spent 18 hours playing bars.
Oh wow.
And like
Okay.
I really enjoyed that. Um, just trying to play it properly.
Hmm.
So so you could have that experience with any of the others. But
Oh,
yeah, so you will enjoy the third Far Cry 3 stuff way more than you'll enjoy the other stuff, just because of how much more quality there is there. But yeah, but then I also went and did the Lost Between Worlds. So I unlocked the co-op in the main campaign, then jumped straight back out, and this one operates differently. It kind of operates like a side game, like you get Far Cry Blood Dragon and all that kind of stuff.
right.
But you have a map, and you basically go through a portal, and the portal will be the same. The first one will be the same every time, but then it's like planets where you basically can either take an orange portal or a purple portal, and you can go one way or the other, and it'll just to take you to different worlds. So
Hmm.
if you take the same path every time, say if you only take purple portals, you'll always go to the same location every time. But if you go purple, orange, or whatever, you'll end up with a
So
different.
the sequencing is what's important.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
exactly. So it's one of those eliminate everything until you've done them all eventually kind of thing.
Got it.
Because you need to, because every end has a crystal. So there's 5 crystals you have to collect, and you have to go through them all at some point. I cleared most of the
Okay.
achievements the first run I did, and then the guides on TA are kind of like, oh, I'll get 4 out of 5 items and blah blah blah, and try to do everything when you're close to the end. But I got my speed run on my second time, and it was due uh the whole thing in 15 minutes. So not get every crystal, but do a sequence. So you
Sure.
do 5 levels within 15 minutes period, and you go to a maze and you go here and go that. I just followed the random achievements. It's like go to
Hmm.
this world, so go to the maze and do this in the maze. So the order they are that I unlocked the achievements were the random ones that led me to the next to the next to the next world. So I kind
Right.
of
Okay.
did.
It
I
just worked
went to
out
the
well.
world specifically that had something I had to do that was random. And then I ended up using most of that direction to get the speed run done. So it was pretty straightforward. Um,
Okay.
I
All right.
really,
I might give it a go actually because I know the base game
yeah,
is on Game Pass at the moment.
it
So
is exactly, yeah. So a really good story. Uh, but doesn't really. It's kind of it doesn't lead to anything because
it's
the
a
game's
DLC, right?
basically
It's a
done.
DLC based on a
So
game that's already
yeah,
out.
it's just
Yeah.
an alternate world version of the same thing with the same character, kind of like
Okay.
everything else that they've kind of done. So but yeah, so it would have been nice to eventually get a final DLC or something that was the same kind of insanity kind of stuff with the
Hmm.
characters from with the boss character you get in, I don't remember his name, um in
In six. Yeah.
6. But they could have tied that up, but
Hmm.
yeah, that's fine. It's all really good.
Uh,
Expensive. The whole thing's expensive if you're going to buy
yeah.
them
Right.
individually.
So Ubisoft Plus is the way
So
to go then.
Ubisoft Plus, if you can tear through the DLC. I think
Got
just
it.
on the DLC I spent maybe 60 hours, so I got my money's worth out of hours.
All right.
And
Okay.
I've not played the base game, which I can easily fall back onto Game Pass because that's where it is. So,
True.
but yeah, had some fun with that. Had a bunch of fun. So, but
Great.
that's everything I've been playing. So,
All right, I'll quickly flick through. I've been playing JoJo's as it's leaving Game Pass, so I'm basically done with it. Actually,
mhm,
it is a sort of standard 2D fighting game, but with like a very sort of simplified controls, lots of
yeah,
characters. Goes through parts 1 through 8 of JoJo's. I mean, I say part 8. It doesn't really do much with part 8 because part 8 kind of wasn't really out by the time this game was made. But it's sort
right.
of but it goes through yeah, basically 1 through 7, and then 8 is just kind of like a little like you just kind of fight the original JoJo's with the new character.
Yeah, but
Um,
yeah,
I have my exposure to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is basically just through memes for the most part. So I've kind of gathered things via osmosis. Um,
mm,
but yeah, this game doesn't really have much of a story to it. It's literally just fight after fight after fight. Like you do like the fights from the actual thing, and then you have like like dream matchups where they take people from different parts and match them together as kind of thing
Yeah,
that
okay.
that fit within the theme. It's fine. It's not overly difficult. You have to do, I think, about 100 different fights for the story mode. Uh, it's relatively straightforward. There are like little, each fight has a kind of, or most of the fights have like a difficulty rating, some secret missions of things you can do in there to get like bonus stuff, and then modifiers on them, like, oh, the guy you're fighting has improved health, or improved defense, but you have improved attack or whatever, based around whatever the scenario is in the for where it comes from in the show.
Yeah.
And then you can also, if you're struggling with levels, you can spend the money that you get from finishing the levels on boosts for that fight. So like there's a boost that like constantly regenerates your health, or there's one that constantly lowers your enemy's health, or improves your stats in general, or gives you constantly regenerating like power meters so you can use your special moves more often. So if you're like, you try and get through as much of it as you can and do as many of the special missions as possible to get currency, and then you can use that currency to basically help you with the fights you get stuck on.
Okay.
So I had basically no trouble with the game at all. I managed to get through almost all of it in the last day or two since it was announced it was leaving. Really, really straightforward. There's only like a couple of slightly annoying things, but like it's super straightforward. Like I'm fucking terrible at fighting games. I've had basically no trouble with it. So all I have left to do is uh play 100 matches online. So I just need to find a boosting partner to quickly smash through that, and I'll be done with the game.
Yeah,
But
okay.
if you are looking to get it done on before it leaves Game Pass, now's a good time to do it. It's taken me about 10 hours to get to this point. TA says 15 to 20. I think it's closer to like 12 to 15 tops. Really,
Yeah,
really
okay.
straightforward.
Yeah. That's the same with that Blaze Blue one. I need to go back and I've done all the online. I need to just do the story, and apparently
Yeah,
it's
Blaze Blue,
only
I'm
a
also thinking
few
about now.
hours to really
Hmm.
smash through that. So,
I might have a look at that too. I mean, again, fighting
mm,
games are really, really not my genre. I mean, like
yeah.
driving games I'll kind of get behind, but fighting games I'm fucking terrible at. But
Yeah.
I enjoy Mortal Kombat, and I enjoyed this for the most part. I wish I understood kind of what the fuck was going on for the most part. I've kind of gathered some parts of it, and I'm kind of like, maybe I should go back and watch JoJo's. I don't know, like, because they've animated the first 6 of the 9 parts of that show, and part 7, 8, 9 probably won't get animated for the next 10 years. But I've heard really, really good things about it, and it just kind of in the anime community is one of those kind of like must watch to understand
Yeah.
half of what people are fucking talking about. It's also one of those things that just like I have influenced so many shows and other like anime and that kind of stuff over the years. I mean, shit, like half of the like abilities and stuff are named after like bands and music and all this kind of stuff, and it's such an interest. Yeah, I won't get into a whole JoJo's rant because I think it's a really, really interesting franchise.
I
But
have heard that. I've not had an interest up to this point, really, but I do know it's bizarre,
yeah,
really, isn't it? So
I
it's
know
just,
that like part one is kind of like the kind of like more standard kind of boring stuff, and like it kind of gets more interesting as like part two onwards.
yeah.
So you kind of just have to struggle through the first season. Yeah, but yeah, so I had an interesting time. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this game, but I've kind of smashed through it. So nearly done. Thinking about doing Fireword Pioneers as well, maybe. I think there's a video guide out for it. Other than that, I don't think there's much else on that list. I don't think I'm doing Pac-Man, for example.
No, no.
And then the last kind of thing I've been, as my sort of palate cleanser, I've been playing Layers of Fear because they finally fixed the achievements for it.
Finally. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
I have not touched this thing and not even gone anywhere near it because like it just didn't work right. So
yeah, they released it and then they broke it, and then it's been broken since January. I actually submitted a thing for it and no one said anything, and now I saw an article on TA saying about it. But anyway,
mm,
they fixed it. I went through and played through it all. It took me about 12, 13 hours, so not very long. It's a reworked version of the first game
uh-huh.
and the DLC,
Okay.
the Inheritance DLC, and then basically just a port of the second game. So the second game is not great.
So
But the first,
it's
yeah,
okay. So it's not like an extra game. It's actually just a combination of
it's basically a collection, yeah. So it's a
okay.
collection of it's there. So like they've like redone the engine and changed some stuff up from the first game to kind of make it more like the second game, kind of like build it the same way. Um,
Yeah, okay.
and it's
Yeah.
good. Like it's really like the first game is still fucking fantastic. I mean, it is a
Yeah.
walking simulator, right? So it's not like
Yeah.
action packed or whatever, but like they get the vibes, like the
Is Is
The
that
aesthetic is fantastic.
the thing that they were calling layers of fears, or is that a
Fears,
different
yeah,
thing?
and then they just called it just Layers of Fear again or
Okay,
whatever
cool.
for some
Right,
reason. So
yeah.
yeah, so they redid the first game, has the DLC from the first game. They added in there's kind of a meta narrative around it now where you're playing as a writer who is engaging with this kind of entity that's in the first and second game or whatever,
Right.
writing about the stories of the first and second game, basically. So there's kind of an interesting meta thing kind of wrapped around it, as like a thematic device as to why you're replaying the first and second game. It also has so that the first game you play as the painter, the husband. The DLC you play as the daughter, going back and trying to uncover some mysteries in the house years later. And then
Yeah.
they've also added a musician, the wife, you play as the wife. They have a new wife DLC in there that's like an hour or two long.
Oh,
It's kind
okay.
of a,
Mhm.
which is quite good actually. I enjoyed it quite a lot. And then in the second game, you play as the actor, but now they also have a free DLC for the director as well. So they've kind of added some extra new scenarios that aren't like super, super long, but if you want to kind of get more into it, I don't think there's any deals, there are no achievements for the director DLC, but there is for the musician.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, so if you just want the complete experience, you can go and play. It
you can
won't,
play the extra
yeah.
bits, but yeah, you only need, yeah, the super new extra bit they didn't add any achievements for. But yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm glad that they finally fixed it. It was kind of it was nice to go back to. I really like enjoyed when Layers of Fear came out, like in 2016 and whatever. It was such an interesting kind of idea of a walking simulator horror thing,
Mm.
and the aesthetic was really, really good, and the house stuff and just the claustrophobia. And I mean, you kind of play it now and they kind of rely on the tropes a little bit too much. You kind of see the wires a little bit, like in terms of like the classic thing of you walk to a door, you can't unlock the door, you turn around and suddenly the environment's changed behind you. They just
Oh,
do that
right.
so fucking often that I'm
Uh,
like, okay, like I'm just like trying to
yeah.
find the trigger for it now instead of being interested in it. But
Mm.
yeah, like I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And like again, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's only like 15 hours tops to do all of the scenarios and get all the achievements.
Yeah,
A lot
okay.
of collectibles though, so just keep an eye out for that.
Mm. Mm.
And yeah, that's me for this week. I'm hoping to play a few other bits and pieces. We also did Diablo 4. We finished the story for that, and
Yes, we did.
that continues to be a pretty fun game. They just released the new patch for that rebalances all the gear and stuff. So curious to see how that affects things.
Yeah, it's a
So
shame we can't go ahead and like our characters are eternal now because the seasons crossed over. So,
yeah,
we
um,
can't. Well, I mean, we have to make a new character
I was gonna start
for
have to make a hardcore character at some
hardcore
point, and I
anyway. So,
just made one just to
mm,
kind of make a sorcerer. So we'll see how that goes.
okay. Yep. Yep. Nice.
All right. Well, let's get into some of our cleanup at the end here. So we've got the leaderboards. In third place, we have Thrash Forever with 7,975. We have Vulgar Latin with 11,590. And we have Northern Lass with 46,895, which is an insane amount of score.
Hey, it's a nice change up in the names after the Xbox cast had their AAC
Yes,
challenge.
it's good. It's good to see that things are changing up a little bit. We get some people we don't normally see in there, although Thrash is usually somewhere around the fourth or
Yeah,
fifth.
yeah, yeah.
So good job, everyone. Keo, do you want to read through completions?
Yeah, so Firehawk did Skylanders Superchargers. The Natolinator did Sunset Overdrive. L4D Pills Here did Telltale Game of Thrones. Rapture did Norco. Just Jake did Brutal Legend and Chicory. Zach, who's in the chat, did Charlie Murder, which was a huge like that hard last difficulty was so hard to
It's a
kind of
huge
get
pain
back
in the
into it.
ass.
Yeah, exactly. So props to that. It was really quick too. Shadow Slide did Rainbow Six Vegas 2. Bottle of Sharks did Little Kitty Big City, and Char nearly finished Solitaire. So that's it for the week.
Yeah, congrats.
Mhm.
Good job, everyone.
Yeah.
And then we have the word challenge, everyone's favorite competition, where I come up with a game and you have to go into the Discord and the word challenge channel and guess what the game is. And
To
if you
the
get it right, you win
annals.
a prize.
Yep.
Yep. So I have come up with a clue. Last week's clue was this game is related to Atlas, which is again the first clue is usually very unhelpful, and I'm glad people clued on. They were like, it's probably not just a game made or published by Atlas, right? It might be. It might be a double bluff. I did have some ideas. There was one in there. There was a guess from Isaac of a game was my second choice that I nearly picked, and I'm glad I didn't because um, but the new clue is this game is the most recent in its series. So it's the latest release from this series. Uh, Don't know what series it is, but give it a go. I'm curious to see what kind of guesses we have. You also know now that it's in a series, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's the only one in the series. Maybe I'm really trying to fuck with you.
Yeah, it's time to get serious.
Yeah, okay, there we go. That's a great title. We'll call the podcast that this week.
Yeah.
All right. And then a huge shout out to our patrons, patreon.com/HaulerGamers. If you are able to support the show at all, we do exclusive content before and after shows for this stuff, as well as our show Lights, Camera, and Action, where we review video game movies and TV shows with the rest of the cast, and we get some guests on and that kind of stuff. We've been recently doing the Fallout series. KEO has been very much enjoying that.
Yes.
He's been writing some great notes for us, so we're about halfway through it at the moment. Episode 4 should be coming out next week. And so we're going to record a few more over the next week or so. So if you're interested, patreon.com/HaulerGamers, we give all the content to all of our tiers. So if you want to support the lowest tier, the highest tier, whatever you want to support at, we're happy to take it. We use that to pay for things like Zoom, for licensing for Buzzsprout, and for equipment and occasional, for prizes for competitions and things like that. And the more we have, the more we can do. So greatly appreciate all the support.
And the more of these TV shows that they start releasing, the more content you may very well have, because it looks like we might be covering
we're
a few
looking
more.
To
so
keep it on trucking as long as we can. So a huge thank you to Lee Howard, Mikhail KV, Natolinator, Mad Lefty, Admiral Awesome, Happy Moogles, Kung Fu Skills, Hack and Pone, Cavaliers 07, Old Mate Clown, Mark B, McLovin Legend, Marsage, Mace J, Left for Legacy, and McNulty. Literally could not afford to do the show without you guys, so thank you all so much. All right. And as always, we've done the show live on Twitch, Xbox Hall of Gamers. We've had David in the chat. We had Moonzom here. We've got Zach. So thank you all for joining us. It's always good to have people in here. And if you want to come hang out, we do the show live on Fridays or Saturdays, depending on who our guests are. So come out, hang out in the chat, ask questions, interact. We love hearing feedback and getting stuff on the news stories and things pointing out stuff that we've missed or forgotten about or not heard about. We love the community engagement. KEO.
Yes.
Now that we're closing up the show, what have you got going on?
All right. So I never mentioned it in the show. I probably could have, that I finished the story of Resident Evil 0 on my stream.
Oh, nice.
So I'd probably have more to say when I get to the end of Resident Evil 1, which is going to be my next stream game. So that'll start from next week. Hopefully. It should be. So Resident Evil 1 next week, streaming a playthrough. I have played the game before because I owned it for the GameCube. At KEO Live at Home on Twitch, and you can catch basically at KEO Live at Home on Instagram, and you can also see that on Twitter for my notification updates as well. But there's a lot of shorts that kind of pop up on Instagram, and at HTFG HTFG HTFG. Geez, it's getting late. Play HTFG play on YouTube. So
on YouTube, all right.
Yeah, it's just like you can find me just on YouTube. So easy. Don't look under KEO Live at Home. That's a different account of mine. Don't follow that one.
And for me, I'm Neomaster on everything. True Achievements, Xbox, and Discord as always. Thank you all for listening. As always, we put the show on Twitch. And it's also on YouTube. So if you missed an episode or you want to go back and watch the VODs, that's the place to do it. Otherwise, we will catch you guys for episode 125 next week. See you later.
Peace out.